In this clip, I want to talk about the issue of Islam in regards to pedophilia. Now, there are a lot of accusations made in regards to Islam and to Mohammed. There are practices today, and if you look amongst the various terrorist groups, the various issues of immigration, we have people saying it's an Islamic practice. In a way, yes, but in a way, no. Now, people will point to Muhammad and say he married Aisha, his second wife, when she was 6 years old and had sex with her when she was 9 years old. Depending on who you ask, you'll get a different story. Some people say he married her at 6 and started having sex with her at the age of 6. Some say he married her at 9 and started at the age of 12 with her. Myself, I really don't know. But we have to consider this. We're talking over 1,000 years ago. The life expectancy probably wasn't much better than what it is now. In fact, it was probably a lot worse depending on the environment and the society you lived in. And, you've got issues of actual sex practices. But when you look at what's occurring today, I don't really think there is a comparison. It's not as though, a lot of people say, oh, Muhammad could do no wrong, everything he did was okay, and blah, blah, blah. I believe there has to be a context to it. Because, remember, during the Middle Ages in Europe, there were child marriages between members of royal families of different European countries. Was there sex involved? I would say there would have been a certain level of intimacy, but who really knows? But one of the things I want to bring up in regards to this is that, people say, oh, Mohammed's a pedophile, and this is why we have all the problems we have today. Look, Mohammed's been dead for over 1,000 years. And what you're seeing now, under the name of Islam, in regards to pedophilia, is, let's say, it's a result of perversion, racial conflict, and, ideologies, pornography. The reason I started doing this series is to show you that all these things are interrelated. So what I will be doing is exposing the modern movements of Islam which do practice pedophilia and showing how they relate to problems within Judaism, Christianity, what you call the atheist secular world. And we can see that these things are all related because there is an end-time plan. Now, I look at it this way. What Mohammed may or may not have done over 1,000 years ago is completely irrelevant. Islam does have problems. You know, the Quran is more or less, I don't know, like an old Mills and Boon novel now, because now it's been replaced by so-called hadiths that Muhammad has said, and yet Muhammad's been dead for over 1,000 years, and these hadiths still keep on sharing now. So, you know, it's along the lines of the Talmud. You know, just make up stuff as you go along, and just claim that someone else wrote it, or just say it's divine, when it actually isn't. So at this current time, I see three issues in regards to what you would say is Islamic-based pedophilia. You've got the issue of, number one, the Islamic State, whatever you want to call it, Islamic State, ISIS, Daesh, I'll just call it Islamic State. So you've got this organisation which engages in all sorts of horrific crap. You know, shooting people, cutting their heads off, burning them alive, drowning them. And as part of the bounty for joining, you know, you get to take sex slaves. And the sex slaves are usually very young girls. You know, you catch a, I don't know, 10-year-old or say a 5-year-old, let's say Yazidi girl. That's it, she's yours, you can fuck her as many times as you want. It's no big deal. Because as far as this Islamic State, which is really a racially based insurgency, is concerned, you know, a Yazidi girl is Kurdish are Aryan people. You know, some people say, oh no, they're just a bunch of wonks, but they're actually classified as Aryans. And you've got Islamic State, which is basically full of Turanians, that is Turkic people, Chechens are an example. And you've got Africans, black Africans, and you've got Semitic type peoples. So you've got the Aryan people, that being the Kurds, who are the first and foremost targets, even though on a religious basis they would be more closely related to you'd say Islamic State, because they are Sunnis. Most Kurdish Muslims are in fact Sunni, and just deemed to be, how you say, not as extreme as, say, the Wahhabis. So you've got the likes of Islamic State, they're doing their cutting, burning, shooting and raping, and they don't seem to have any problems with videoing these things and putting them on YouTube type sites. But one exception, that is the raping of their captives. So when you look at it, if they're videoing killing people, these are basically snuff movies. Then why would they even hold back? What would prevent them from making kiddie porn? And really, when you look at it, there must be an absolute Aladdin's cave full of this stuff. The rapes, and it's always kids, you can say the ones who are taken captive, 15 years and under. Well, you think they're not doing these things and making movies out of these things? Of course they are. So, you've got all this happening, and yet in the Western world, you've got the likes of, so-called civil libertarians, all these left-wing arseholes who say, oh, terrorists are our friends, stop being racist, stop being Islamophobic, who are pretty much okay with lowering the age of consent. But, they'll say Western governments this, and this is within our own countries. Western governments this, the imperialist, whatever, corporatist, warmonger machine. But they don't have a problem with the likes of Islamic State. And you've got to ask, what do those two groups have in common that make them, or put them in a position where it's not really of any advantage to make war with each other? Fact is, it points to the same thing. In the Western countries, you have white atheists or apostates, wanting to lower the age of consent, seeking to lower the age of consent for pornography. And yet, in the Middle Eastern countries, you got the likes of Islamic State, who are, taking children, raping children, and filming themselves doing this. But as much as the left-wing civil libertarians want to start broadcasting child pornography, they cannot. So you wonder, why is it that Islamic State is not broadcasting the pornography they make? And, there must be something that's binding them together, because if they were truly separated from each other, then either one or the other would go forth and start broadcasting kiddie porn. So Islamic State is holding back for some reason, and you've got to ask why, And, looking at it, Western civil libertarians, don't have a bad thing to say about Islamic State. And the Islamic State, if one of their terrorists is caught in a Western country, who do they call? The civil libertarians. Hey, I need help. Come and help me. So, is there a relationship between these two groups? I believe there is. Nothing formal, but I believe there is. Now, a second group I want to bring up is, with all these so-called alleged refugees who are making their way to Europe. Far as I know, the idea of inviting refugees into Europe officially was Syria is such a basket case. Iraq has a war with Islamic State. Both Syria and Iraq have problems with Islamic State. So it's deemed that all the Syrians can go to Europe, they can wait till the war ends, and then they can go back. Fact is that 75% of these so-called refugees are not Syrians or Iraqis. They are North Africans, they are sub-Saharan Africans, and they are also from the Indian subcontinent. And their purpose for going into Germany and Sweden, that's their main two targets, is to sponge on welfare. You know, they've got this attitude that they are there to impose dimitude on the Europeans. And as night follows day, you know, these so-called refugees are responsible for a hell of a lot of sex attacks against children. You know, one only has to, you know, search on the net for various news services around the world, the ones that are not politically correct, and you'll see plenty of these rapes, particularly against children. You know, so, you know, when you look at it, you know, these countries in Africa, Indian subcontinent, North Africa, you know, they welcome Merkel's announcement because they could empty out their prisons, they could empty out their slums, they could grab all the scum of their society and say, there's you, Germany, get going. You know, and when you look at the likes of Germany, you know, the age of consent in Germany is actually 14. You know, whereas in Middle Eastern countries, generally it's around about the 18 years of age marking. But not only that, you have to be married in order to have sex. So there's no such thing as screwing around in pubs, clubs, hanging around Cologne train station and just raping anyone you feel like it. So, you know, you might be asking, well, isn't this what Islam is about? No. Because if they try to do this sort of stuff in an Islamic country, you know, they'd be dead within a day. Yet they go to Europe, and again the civil libertarians are there to bail them out of jail, scream about human rights, and so on. And when they get there, you know, you've got the Jews screaming, oh, you shouldn't be Islamophobic, you shouldn't be racist. If anyone complains, everybody knows what the end result is going to be. So, this is not something that's just occurred at random. This has been planned. And you've also got the issue in Afghanistan of the Taliban with the dancing boys. And you can look that up for yourself, where child prostitution is an accepted thing, you know. Young boys dancing around, dress them up as girls, and if you got enough money and enough guns, you can have sex with them. And this is accepted. You This is the thing Islam has to deal with. And this, like, Islamic State, this war in the Middle East, it's racial war. It's not a religious war. It is a racial war. And, yeah, when you look at the civil libertarians in the Western countries, whenever the Western countries attack Islamic State, they're accused of racism. And in the Middle East, you got when the government of, say, Syria or Iraq, who are Shiite for the most part, attack these Islamic State, they are accused of being sectarian. So when you look at it, you've got the likes of Islamic State, you got the likes of what I call Tabel Judaism, people who are Jews not because of religion but because of their mother and the bloodline. And you got these dripping left-wing Christians, you got these hardcore feminist atheists. These bastards are all working together. It's about time people come to realise that. So, I want to wrap it up here. And we've still got Christianity to deal with, which is utterly apostate. And then, most probably I'll do a bit on atheism, secularism. Look, all these bad bastards are helping each other out. And there's a degree of pedophilia amongst all of this. It is actually a binding element between these groups of bad people. So, until next time.